doubt. Did you catch that word, doubt? It's in that gospel story. I mean, this is the resurrection. They see the risen Jesus right in front of them, and they doubted. That's the way Matthew put it. They worshiped him, but they doubted. I didn't make any sense of that. How could you doubt? I decided it was worth looking into it. In other words, what would you doubt in a moment like that? And as I was digging around, came across a really interesting fact. The word that Matthew uses in this story that's translated doubt, that word is only used one other time in Matthew's gospel. It's in the story of Jesus walking on the water. You probably remember most of this story. They finish their day, and Jesus sends the disciples in the boat to the other side of the lake. Jesus goes up onto a mountain to pray. And then very early in the morning, then he comes down and he walks across the water out to where the boat is. And the disciples see him and they just freak. They think it's a ghost. They have no idea what's going on. Jesus says to them, "Take courage, it is I." And then Peter says something very interesting. He says to Jesus, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come out onto the water with you." And Jesus says, "Sure, come on out." And Peter does. He takes this step out over the boat. I have no idea what that would be like to, suddenly feel you're on solid something. And he walks out towards Jesus. But as you remember this story, Peter gets distracted. He starts looking at the wind and the waves, and he starts to sink. And Jesus rescues him. They get in the boat, and Jesus says to him, "Oh, why do you of little faith? Why do you doubt?" I just think in that story, that story might explain this one, because it seems to me Peter's got two issues, if you will, two flavors of doubt. The first is he's not sure it's Jesus. They thought it was a ghost. They hear Jesus' voice, but Peter's not sure about this. And that's why I think he words his question, "Lord, if it is you, let me come out on the water with you." So there's that, and I guess you can see that in the Ascension too. I mean, it seems easy for us to say, you're standing in front of the resurrected Jesus, what's the issue? But, I mean, Jesus was dead, and now he's not. And that's not, I guess, the easiest thing to get your head around. And so I suppose it's a little understandable if somehow some doubt, well, I think that's Jesus. Peter has a second sort of flavor of doubt. He gets out on the water, and even though he's standing on water, he sort of doubts that he can continue to stand on water. He doubts that he continue to do what he knows he can do. I just wonder if maybe that is the real doubts, or the biggest doubt for the disciples here at the Ascension. That they're thinking to themselves, okay, we have been ministering, we have been doing all sorts of things with Jesus. But now that Jesus is leaving, can we still do those things? Can we still talk the way Jesus talked? Can we still do the things that Jesus did? Can we still minister? Can we spread the news of Jesus? Maybe that was the real, if you will, the most important doubt in their mind in that moment. And so then you bring it to us, because I suspect both of those actually play into us. Think the identity of Jesus, if you will. You and I, we're not likely to end up with some experience where we're confronted with a physical Jesus and we're trying to figure out, is that Jesus? But we do pretty much most days have to ask ourselves something about Jesus' teaching. Do we believe in Jesus' teaching, or do we doubt that? In other words, Jesus says that we should forgive people and pray for our enemies. Do we believe that? Do we doubt? You know, our society tells us the opposite, and maybe in those moments we say, well, I don't know, Jesus, I understand what you're saying, but still, it's not, maybe this isn't going to work out. We might doubt when Jesus says that we have to live our lives for others. Those of us that lose our lives will find them. We might doubt Jesus' sense of priorities, because they're radically different than the priorities that our society brings us. So maybe in that sense, we doubt whether it is Jesus. And when it comes to the second flavor, if you will, we might look at those and say, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can continue to do this ministry. I don't know that it will continue to work or be effective. Or maybe we're questioning whether we can do something at all. So God puts something on our hearts, and we're just not sure that we can do this task that's been put before us. You might even take it out to something larger. You might say, I'm beginning to wonder if the church in America or in the world can make a difference at all in our lives or in society. I think all that's legitimate doubt. What's the solution to doubt? Probably you could get it from St. Ignatius of Loyola. He used to talk about these times of consolation, as he put it, times where you just, like your spiritual life was just good. You felt good, your prayer was rich, you felt connected to God. And then times of desolation, the exact opposite. Your prayer was dry, you just didn't feel like anything was making any difference. If you had come to Ignatius and said to him, my prayer life is awful, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, and in the meantime, I'm just not praying very much. I'm going to just wait until it gets better to go back to my routine of prayer. Ignatius, I think, would have stopped you right away and was like, oh no, don't do that, don't do that. Do the opposite of that. If you've been doing a prayer time of 20 minutes and now it feels dry, do 30 minutes, do 40 minutes of prayer. His belief was that you would sort of push your way through moments of desolation. I just wonder if that's the solution, if you will, or a strategy for doubt, because you get it in these readings. I mean, take the first one, this idea of like, I don't know if that's Jesus. You know, imagine in the story of the Ascension, if the disciples, they look there and they, I don't know, I don't think that's Jesus. And they turn and leave. Story's over. But they stayed, they sort of pushed through whatever doubt they had, and then they saw Jesus ascend into heaven. And at that point, wow, there's not much doubt left there, I think. And take Peter. You know, Peter doubts Jesus, you know, that's Jesus out on the water. And he could have turned the boat and just said, okay, we're done with this. But he does not. He says to Jesus, he sort of acknowledges his doubt. Lord, if it is you, let me come out onto the water. I just think there's something to that. I think we need to push through our doubts. So if we've got a ministry going on and we're just not sure that it's working or that we're qualified to do it, well, that's okay. We just need to keep pushing through it. Doubt, I think, gets a bad rap these days, to use that expression. I kind of feel like doubt is a sin, that we should not doubt. I don't know. I just wonder if maybe this lesson teaches us that it's just part of the human condition. So maybe the issue is not whether we doubt or not, but what we do with it. And in that regard, I think we need to be like Peter and like the disciples. We need to sort of work through, push through our doubt. Those moments where things don't feel right, that's good. We just need to trust, blind trust perhaps, that God's there, that God's with us. Because it ends so very well. You look at this story in particular. That's 11 guys. Maybe some other people were there, but that's 11 guys, and they changed the world, even though at the beginning they doubted.